Today, at another panel here at this America's Future Now conference, gathering of progressives, understand their perspective, right? So you get the context. We were talking, there was a panel on follow the money, and where does the money go, and how does that affect politics? How does it affect Democrats? How do you get Democrats to change if most of their money is coming from lobbyists, et cetera, right? You look at what Obama did with Goldman Sachs, and we talk about Goldman Sachs a lot on the show. They're, the top dogs in Wall Street, and so many of the top officials in the Obama administration used to work for Goldman Sachs. And I've gone through the list, and Tim Geithner's former advisors were all, I wouldn't say all, but I'd say about 75% former Goldman Sachs or current Goldman Sachs employees. So they've got a Goldman Sachs mentality, and then, you have very real consequences to that, including the first people that basically get paid in all this bailout nonsense is Goldman Sachs. They get about $13 billion from AIG, and that $13 billion from AIG came from us, the United States taxpayers. Now, they get it as part of this naked derivative deal, and it is very, very arguable. Elliot Spitzer has argued, other smart people have argued, and I've looked at the facts itself, that no way Goldman Sachs should have been paid 100 cents on the dollar there, because AIG is bankrupt. And while they're bankrupt, to pay the most dubious of claims, first, to AIG for $13 billion, to me seems crazy. And then if you're an actual progressive, you would have never allowed that, right? But who was the number one donor to Barack Obama during the election?
Goldman Sachs.
Bingo. Goldman Sachs.
$989,000. That's incredible.
But what's also incredible about that is they do an investment of about $1 million, and look at what their payback is.
I know.
$13 billion. It's the best investment in the world. That's why these corporations pour money into the politicians. They buy them for relatively cheap and get fantastic returns. It's such a good scam, it makes me think, can we get in on it? Okay, I mean, because we're getting robbed left and right. Mm-hmm. It's because the system's set up wrong. They have to keep, even Obama, who collected so much money from individual donors that he could, bragged about and ran a campaign based on, I'm not taking money from lobbyists. Now, technically, he's taking money from Goldman Sachs employees, not lobbyists, but he's taking $1 million for them. And is it a coincidence? I'm asking you, is it a coincidence that his largest donor is Goldman Sachs, and the people that get paid $13 billion instantly on something a lot of people have argued they shouldn't necessarily be getting paid in full, certainly, is the same people, Goldman Sachs? It appears that if you believe it's a coincidence, that you're at least a little naive. Mm-hmm. The man is a politician, and so when there's so much promise that Obama has, and that he's literally promised us, and we get these disappointments, it hurts a little more, And maybe that's because we were still naive to some degree.
Right.
And I get that he's a politician, but it just sucks seeing it actually happen in the real world.
Yeah, and look, I don't want you to think that I'm completely naive on it. I understand he's a politician, too. I didn't think he was going to be like Mr. Perfect, where he's going to follow through on every single thing. But like you said, there are 3 issues that he did not follow through on, that he has handled terribly. And, I mean, it just makes me so mad to think that the Bush administration has gotten away with murder. Osama bin Laden has gotten away with murder, and what is Obama doing about it? Nothing. As far as Osama bin Laden, I mean, we're in Afghanistan now, but I'm talking about the Bush administration. What has he done to prosecute the war crimes that they've committed? Nothing. And all this, I'm going to look forward and not look backward stuff, I can't stand it. Because that means that there's no justice in this country.
I know, and the same thing, again, applies to the bankers. They take home tens of millions, sometimes literally hundreds of millions of dollars, and they knew the stuff they were selling was bad. Here, look, I'll give you another quick example. Mm-hmm. Goldman Sachs comes up with, I keep coming back to Goldman Sachs. I don't want you to get the idea that Goldman Sachs is the only one who did this, right? They're just representative, but all of them did this, all the top financial companies. They come up with these mortgages, these mortgage-related contracts, okay, and assets. And one of them is collateral debt obligations and CDOs. And they know it's crap, and they sell it. They put it together, and then they sell it to other institutions like AIG. And what they do immediately afterwards is they make a bet against the thing that they just sold to another bank. Mm-hmm. Okay, they might have. It's so complicated that they might sell it to a different bank and then make a bet with AIG on it, right? And they make a bet against it because they know they're the ones who put it together. They know what kind of crap it is. And so when that bet goes, when they win that bet, when that mortgage that they put together that they knew sucked goes down the hill, then they get the $13 billion. So they got paid to put together crap, and then they get paid even more, maybe 10 times more, for winning a bet on the stuff that they knew was crap.
Exactly.
And then they walk away. Mm-hmm. They walk away with the money. And that's when Anna Kasparian and me and so many of you get so damn frustrated. How come the guys at the top that have done the most wrong, whether it's the financial industry or the Bush administration, are the ones that always get away with it? And we thought we dared to think that it might be a little different under the Obama administration. And I'll tell you, certainly on the financial industry side, it is no different. I mean, that sounds like it's harsh to say no different, right? Because at least on the torture side, at least Obama's not doing the torture anymore. He's, closed down the CIA secret prisons. Credit where credit is due. And it's not, to say that he's no different than Bush's would be way wrong, right? He's disappointing, but nowhere near Bush. But on the financial industry stuff, I mean, again, naively thought, well, they got to, at some point, do regulation so this disaster doesn't happen again, right? And the proposal of Tim Geithner, very recently, on what kind of regulation they're going to do on these derivatives that brought down the economy, is an absolute and utter joke. Because he's a joker. He makes jokes. Okay. No, seriously. It's an information clearinghouse. They're not saying we're going to regulate you. They're not saying we're even going to put you in a market like the stock market, which would have slightly more regulation. They're saying, and that information clearinghouse, because of a giant loophole in the bill that the New York Times explained over the weekend, might be voluntary. Can you please tell us what kind of derivatives trades that you might be doing, please, that might destroy the entire world economy? They should be made illegal. Not all derivatives. Some derivatives make sense. They're insurance on assets. But if you're doing a naked derivative, meaning that your bet you have no underlying assets related to the bet you're making, it means all you're doing is gambling, like betting on a football game. That should be flat out illegal, and Obama administration nor the Democrats in Congress are anywhere near that position. So how Obama has handled the financial industry is horrible. Now, again, final thing before we take the break. Don't get me wrong. Have some perspective on it. His foreign policy, as I've talked to the guests throughout this conference today and yesterday, I think is excellent. I said to one of our guests, and I mean it, 100 out of 100. And his administration is getting tough with Israel. That's also in the news today. They're building a new project in East Jerusalem because of the Interior Ministry, which is radical right-wing in Israel, and the Obama administration is apparently very angry about it. That is exactly the right position. If you care about Israel, you care about the United States, and you care about world affairs, you help them to come to a more sensible position so you could have peace. Going after bin Laden in Pakistan and Afghanistan, exactly right. We talked to someone else today about how did Obama get the Pakistani government to move against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and SWAT when Bush for 8 years couldn't get them to move. And look how quickly he made that happen. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot that Obama's doing right, and I certainly would rather have him than any Republican by a mile. But it's our job to stay on his ass on the things he's getting wrong, because we could be doing him a favor. Either he's not doing it right and he's never going to do it right, in which case we should fight him, or he's looking for cover to do the right thing, but he only has pressure from the right wing and not from the left wing. Mm-hmm. So we have to put that progressive pressure on him so he gets to a better position.